Hmm. Well, waiting for John to join us. I'm not sure if he'll be hopping on or not, but I titled the live today Orange Man Bad. And I did so because I think it's funny whenever people try to, mock or deride individuals on the left by saying that all they have to say is Orange Man Bad, or they focus so much on Orange Man Bad. And I don't know exactly why, because let's be real, Orange Man is in fact bad. There's not a lot of counter arguments to that. I mean, Donald Trump has been uh, just an aggressively malignant force in American politics, and he's made the world a worse place. Just his presence, and he's the world's most obvious grifter and con man. It is very surprising to me that people don't see this. I guess more people don't. It's not that people don't see it; it's that they don't care. They just don't. And to an extent, I know that everyone is aware that politicians are, for the most part, in it for themselves, and they'd sell you out for money or power or influence at a moment's notice. But Trump is especially unique in his. Oh, here we go. Yo.
Sorry I'm late, TJ.
All good, man. It's all good. How you doing?
Doing good. What a lot of our viewers don't know is that despite our immense popularity, we don't get paid to do this, and sometimes our 9 to 5s go past it. So
yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. Just on the old grind, we're all trying to survive.
Got to make money for our capitalist overlords, right?
We do. What is he gonna do? So. I was just rambling on talking about, I titled the live Orange Man Bad, and I just did it for fun because I think it's funny that people on the right will mock and deride individuals on the left by saying, oh, you guys are just focused on Orange Man Bad, because Orange Man is bad. I mean, he is in fact bad. It's not a bad argument to say that, yeah, Trump has been a horrible presence in American politics and American culture in general. He's just been this malignant force that's been foisted upon our lives for the last 8 years now. So yeah, it's not unreasonable to say, hey, this guy is bad. Maybe we shouldn't give him the reins of power for 4 more years.
I will agree with everything you said except one thing. I think he's been wonderful for American politics. I think he's destroying the Republican Party from the inside out. More people pay attention to politics when he's involved. Honestly, he did some necessary things to move political discourse into a more accessible direction for the average American. So I would say that overall, as long as Trump doesn't get another chance at the presidency and, create a fascist dictatorship in America, I'll look back on the overall effect Trump had on politics in general in America and be like, more good than bad. But other than that, yeah, I would say Orange Man bad in general.
I think that he definitely has made politics more accessible to people who didn't care. But that hasn't been good. I don't think that's been good at all. A lot of the people that, didn't care about politics, who joined in and became interested because of Trump, are just awful. They're just, I mean, there's like some of the worst people we've ever seen. They even lack the decorum that you would have associated with a right-wing nut job just 5 or 10 years ago. Now they're just like, beasts just out there, cause. But it is true that he is slowly destroying the Republican Party. There's no denying that. And because like a lot of Republicans are embarrassed of him, which is what you're seeing more and more here. It's actually been kind of surprising to me to watch the results of the primaries, because there's still like a sizable chunk of Republicans that vote against him, even though he's the only candidate. That's so they're essentially protest votes, which I wouldn't have suspected there would be a significant number of protest votes, especially among Republican primary voters, but they're still there.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to the Republican primary voters, you have to remember that there is probably just as much of a contingent that loves Trump as one that hates him, like it within the Republican Party. Now, which one of those sides is more powerful is pretty obvious. But when it comes to the standard voters on the ground, there is a sizable chunk that absolutely hate Trump. In the same way, there's a sizable chunk of leftists that absolutely hate Biden. I just think that with Biden, the people who hate him are on the farther fringes. And with Trump, the people who hate him are more centrist. And so you have a lot of, Reagan Republicans who aren't really down with the overt racism and just structural damage to the Republican Party who, they'll vote against Trump. That doesn't necessarily mean they have good policy or nothing, but from the perspective of maintaining the power of the party, they very much know what needs to be done to do that. And I think that's what the protest vote is about, more so than any particular policy point.
Oh yeah.
Although I have been seeing a lot of, I can barely use Twitter anymore. It is so bad.
It's bad.
But when I do go on Twitter, I get just the worst people. It's not even like Matt Walsh's anymore. It's just like random dude with a check mark. But I see a lot of opposition from pro-lifers to he's come out now and been a little more tepid on the abortion thing than at least what the pro-lifers wanted. And they're like, I can no longer in good conscience vote for Trump. I'm like, what are you talking about? Come on.
What are you talking about?
He'll do exactly, once he's in power, he'll do exactly what needs to be done. Let's not pretend you don't understand doublespeak now, guys. Come on.
So you're right that there's a sect of the Republican Party that doesn't like the ugly and blatant overt racism that Trump represents. They prefer the covert racism. That's what they miss those days when you would say, instead of the Mexicans are rapists, you just say that we need to protect American jobs. Just put the right euphemism in. And it is that's one of the topics I had written down for possibly for tomorrow was Trump and his because I think it's fascinating. Trump and his announcement that one, he was against this law the Arizona Supreme Court ruling that instituted this 1864 abortion law, and also that he is against a federal abortion ban, which he's always kind of been that way. He kind of hinted toward it a little while ago, but he's always said he was against the federal abortion ban because he's not quite as insane as your baseline Republicans, which that's definitely a giant majority of the party. It is overwhelming. And it's been funny to me ever since the Republicans have been getting their asses kicked on this abortion thing, that the smart Republican politicians are out there saying that, well, we may have these pro-life views that, abortion is wrong, but if we want to win elections, we need to back policies that are a little bit more moderate, which is not going to make sense to Republican voters because they believe all abortions are murder. And you're out there saying some murders are fine. And that doesn't
we have to murder babies in order to win elections is essentially what you're telling them.
Yeah. And you're right that it is a lie. It is a lie that they're saying that, hey, we're going to actually implement these reasonable guardrails on abortion to make sure it's not outlawed permanently. No, they won't. No, they won't. And I heard someone talking about the fact that they're going to be held in check the same way the Democrats are, because the Democrats, like Biden, did a commercial I saw saying that he wanted to, codify Roe v. Wade into law, which he's not going to do. He can't do it because he doesn't have 60 votes in the Senate. And then they said, well, Republicans are stuck there too, because they're not going to have 60 votes in the Senate either. And I was like, do you think for 1 second the Republicans won't do a carve out for the filibuster for an abortion ban? They do it at the drop of a hat. They would do it. They would find a way. So I think that if they win the Senate and the House, they'll absolutely try to go for a federal abortion ban. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, but also they're not going to win the Senate and the House. So
I don't think so. No,
as long as one Donald J. Trump is on the ticket and abortion rights are on the ticket, they're not winning anything, and it's going to be a boring election, honestly, DJ. I think this is going to be. I think my call of this election back in last summer is it's all played out exactly like we've expected so far, and I don't see any reason why it would change.
The Republicans keep fucking themselves. They keep doing it. Like this Arizona thing is the biggest piece of political malpractice. Someone should go to jail. Like I have ever seen. Like
I
you
feel
need
bad
to
for the Republicans.
Say what?
I feel bad for the Republicans.
It's like, why would you do that? The Supreme. I didn't even know this is up for review in the Supreme Court. They could have just put it off until next year if they wanted, but no, they are such true believers that they said, no, we are going to just completely They handed if Arizona wasn't already locked down for Biden, it was still a toss up in a way. They just did it. They just guaranteed Biden wins Arizona. They guaranteed it.
It's incredible, and it's almost like it's two parties just trying to lose. Although I know the Republicans aren't trying to lose; they're incapable of having coherent strategy because of who the leader is. But the Democrats are just constantly getting in their own way because they're fighting a two-front battle. Like that, and the Republicans are now too, and that's the thing. Like both parties are now fighting these two-front battles. It's just that the DNC is winning both battles, and the GOP is losing both battles. They're being completely taken over by the fringe right. I was reading an article today about what the Republicans had to say about the Marjorie Taylor Greene wanting to oust Mike Johnson. Mm-hmm. And can I screen share this? Have we figured out how to let me screen share?
I don't think you can. I think it has to come.
I'm going to try.
Does it say present on the bottom?
Yeah, it says present. Yeah.
Oh, then you might be able to. All right, cool.
Okay, I'm going to share screen here. Cool. Okay, yeah, this is it. So are we seeing this?
Do you see it? I do.
I see my screen, so I'm going to assume that you see it. I can't see both at the same time.
Stage, yeah.
Perfect. All right, guys, we are learning as we go. Another reminder. So
the amateurish nature of this production.
I just found this to be so funny because essentially we have Marjorie Taylor Greene who's saying, "Let's get rid of Mike Johnson because he's going to vote for Ukraine."
Can you zoom in on? I can't read it.
I'll zoom in here.
All right, cool.
So we have Marjorie Taylor Greene who wants to vacate Johnson. And all of the Republicans in Congress, like these quotes are hilarious. I don't see how who could do a better job. I don't know who could get the votes needed to become speaker and then effectively lead.
A fool's errand.
They're getting rid of Johnson because nobody wants the job. Who wants the job? And who could do the job? It's a fool's errand. Like they're just admitting, just straight up reporters, none of us are capable of governing.
Well,
please don't make us do it.
I don't think it's necessarily that the Republicans aren't capable of governing, but the Republican caucus is a mess. Like it is a nightmare. Like say what you want about, Hakeem Jeffries or Nancy Pelosi. They ran a tight ship when it came to keeping their men in order and the Republicans. That's why who would want to be Speaker of the House with the Republican House? Like with maniacs like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene running around just doing whatever they want and saying whatever they want and making your party look absurd and ridiculous and just threatening to remove you every 10 minutes. Yeah, F that. I would never want that job. I don't blame anyone for not wanting it.
It reminds me of how what's a Panthers fan? Like small market team that has always been bad, and it's like, oh well, we need a new coach, but none of the top candidates want to come here. They're going to go everywhere else. So I guess who's next man up? And right now, there's not a single coach in all of football that wants to come coach for the Republicans. Like it is embarrassing to have to say that. Like, can you imagine if a company was like, guys, I know you guys want to fire our CEO because he's incompetent, but honestly, not a single person at this company wants the job, so we're just going to have to keep him. Like, how do you think that would play out in the stock markets after that? Call, right?
And they're clamoring for, later this year, there's like the biggest maniac possible. They all agree on that guy. Everybody wants this guy. It's like, man, this is, what it's like, sticking with the sports analogy. It's like a minor league baseball team. You ever go to a
Mhm.
minor league baseball game and they always have these weird gimmicks to get people to come in and stuff? That's what the Republican Party reminds me of. It's not a series, or it's not a professional, like a major league political party. It's a minor league party that can't get their act together and just has to rely on gimmick after gimmick to stay relevant.
But like that is what it is. Like we
It
are
is, yeah.
reaching that point with the Republican Party where you just can't sustain this
You can't, no.
very long. Like I don't know what the think tank heads are even thinking about right now in terms of exit strategy from Donald Trump, but it is an unsustainable coalition they have going on right now, and it's going to blow up when Trump loses. And I say this a lot. Like after every election, every single time the losing party goes, oh, well, our best candidate that just defeated all these other candidates, he got beat. So who else do we have left in store? And then inevitably 4 years later, we have a whole new crop of people and it works out. But I do think that this time they're all screwed because like they've all attached their wagon to the Donald Trump boat. I guess the ones that have remained relatively, like I think Nikki Haley has set herself up perfectly to take the reins of the party. I think there are people within the party that can take the reins, but it's going to be a power struggle in terms of in what direction it goes. Because
Yes.
either you double down on the fascism with a try to have a more competent cult of personality, or you try and go centrist. And I don't think any of the voters are primed to go centrist.
No.
And I don't think anyone else in the Republican Party is primed to have a cult of personality around them. So like I genuinely don't know. I know exactly what's going to happen up until November, whatever the fuck it is, 2024. I don't know what happens a day after that.
Yeah, I think that because we talk about this a lot, that the Republican Party, like I said, they're not a serious party. They don't have a strategy to win any elections, honestly, because the strategy hasn't changed in 60 years. The strategy is appeal to white Christian conservatives and literally nobody else. And that's been their bread and butter for ever since the civil rights movement. And that's not a sustainable action.
Wait, you forgot gerrymandering and reducing voter turnout in black districts.
Yes.
You forgot about that one, TJ.
And actively try to suppress the black vote. That's always funny too. Whenever Republicans try to take credit for the Republicans of the early '60s, and like, yeah, Republicans voted to pass the Voting Rights Act, and so, which is true, they did, but more Democrats did. I always like to point that out, like because the Republicans voted higher in percentage. It was like 27 out of 35 Republicans, but it was something like 50 Democrats voted for the Civil Rights Act too. And so, but they try to take credit for this shit, but my entire life, like ever since the 80s, they have been actively chipping away at both the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. They can't talk to any libertarian or any business centric right winger, and they will tell you how much they are suspicious of the Civil Rights Act because the federal government is getting involved in businesses and telling them who they have to and who people they can't dismiss and everything like that. And the Voting Rights Act, too. Justice Antonin Scalia was the architect of just stripping away over, I can't remember how many years. It was over like 4 or 6 years, something like that. 900 polling locations were shut down in the South because Antonin Scalia fought to overturn parts of the Civil Rights Act. And, you can guess where those voting locations were targeted at, trying to reduce the black vote. But anyway, yeah, they're focusing on white rural conservative voters, and also they make it a point to go out of their way to insult everybody else. Like they tell young people, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're lazy, you're entitled. Black people, you keep whining too much. Women, you should really know your place. And it's like, okay, why do you think these populations are voting against you? The populations that are actually growing, you're insulting them. This is not going to work. You're not going to be able to, get anybody in office in the next 20 years if you keep this up. They're going to have to change.
If only Democrats would also stop insulting young people, maybe there would be a party of the future. But the thing you said, the voting rights thing is the thing that always blows my mind. Because I understand why Republicans in general want to, limit voting. But I don't understand why the average normie Republican goes for that shit. And I just want to say offhand, it's one of the things that I always go to when people are like, show me one example of systemic inequality in America. I'm like, well, I live in an 85% white neighborhood in Philadelphia. I go to vote. I just kind of, whenever, I just go down the street to my voting place. I can walk there if I want to. I go in and out. It's never taken me more than 10 minutes. Meanwhile, in Athens, Georgia, there's 4, 5, 6 hour long wait times in the lines. And like, you're telling me that isn't just a pure example of systemic inequality? Like, what? I understand, like, okay, I might take 10 minutes, you might take 30, maybe even an hour, but like, there's no way you can tell me that making minority areas wait longer in line to vote isn't discriminatory. It's utterly insane. That, like, people don't just see that at face value and go, yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense.
And it's one of two different things. The first is, like you said, they may have the experience where for them voting has always been real easy. You just walk in, you vote, you're out, in 5-10 minutes. And whenever people can say that's hard, they just don't believe them. Or second, whenever they do see, because they do, you watch the news and you'll see giant lines and everything. And then what they'll say is, well, listen, voting's very important. Like, if you were a real patriot, you wouldn't mind waiting 3 hours to vote. That's what they go to. It's like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, what are you talking about? And even when people like they're actively against making voting easier. They see it as an insult. Like, they like whenever like mail-in voting or early voting or drop by, they're against all of it. And they really do believe that it's like some noble thing that voting should be difficult for everybody else, not for you necessarily, but that they see it as some sort of badge of honor. Like, you're less of an American because you can't take 4 hours out of your workday to stand in line to vote.
And not to mention that, the people who it's more easy to take 4 hours off their workday, whatever, tend to be the richer people who have PTO and can do that, not the lower working classes that are going to be able to do that. And now, that's just the way it is. That's the way the cookie crumbles today. That's actually, I mean, I think I'm about to go higher, broader here, but like, I think that is one of the most insane things about when people talk about, well, we make things cost more as a market signifier, Econ 101, to show how much people want it. And if people want it more, they'll be able to pay more for it. So that's a fair value exchange. And it's like, no, that doesn't make sense because we all have different amounts of money. For some things like, a diamond ring, cool with that. Absolutely no problem there. Let the person with as much money as they want get that. But for things you need, like schooling, or housing or food, or even things that you just kind of want, like concert tickets. Like, I think a lot of people can agree on the food thing, but a lot of things out there like concert tickets, it would make a hell of a lot more sense if we just made a line, and whoever got in the line first, they paid for the concert ticket, and we didn't allow a resale market to overflow the value. We don't do that. And instead, we have this system where the people who can spend the most for the tickets get them. And the people who actually would really love to go more and want to go more don't get them just because they don't have the money available to them. And that makes the concert experience or the sports experience worse for everyone involved, because if you had a bunch of crazy fans there, it would be a better experience. I don't know. I went on a tangent there.
No,
it all connects. Like, it's all the same mindset to get through these things.
Yeah, it also applies to what we were talking about first with representation, because the more money you have, the easier it is for you to get represented, not just, by lobbying and stuff like that, but by being able to take off time to vote. The concert thing, this is something I've thought of before, but I keep running into problems when I think about it, because I do love this idea, because I don't like the fact that the Super Bowl is when I think of this the most, because you find out the Super Bowl, like half the audience in the Super Bowl is not from the city, or not from that city. They fly in from all over, the country and all over the world. And the people in the city aren't necessarily, probably not, the fans of the team there, but still, like, a Super Bowl comes to your city. I think the people in the city should be the one experiencing it and having fun, not just a bunch of rich people from all over the country. But when I think, because I had this thought too, it's like, well, limit the sales to the people within the area. Like 80%, 90% of the tickets can only come to you if you live, in these area codes or in this city or in this state. But then I know what would happen. Like if I was, Joe P. Rich guy, I would just pay money to people to stand in line for me and buy the ticket. And there would be ways around. Like, you could work your way around it. I don't know, but I hate that because I think back to I never attended a whole lot of concerts in my time, but I remember like in my 20s and stuff, tickets were not expensive to concerts, not wildly expensive. Like your average person could go pretty easily, but now you see the prices of tickets, they are through the roof. Like for sporting events, for concerts, they're crazy, much higher than they were, 20, 30 years ago. And you're right. It's like, I'm not saying that we should, control the markets for everything. We don't need draconian in that fashion, but, people dismiss that the idea that outside of basic needs you shouldn't worry about it. That's not true, because this is something conservatives say a lot, where they talk about how it's actually really easy to succeed. All you got to do is finish high school, get yourself a job working at Burger Mart, and get yourself a studio apartment, live off bread and water, don't go to movies, don't drink soda, don't get a girlfriend, don't do anything that makes life worth living. And then in 5 years you've proven yourself worthy and you might rise out of it. It's absurdity. You're asking people to be something other than human. So yeah, I do agree that we shouldn't be so quick to dismiss like the fun parts of life as a necessity, because they absolutely are.
Exactly. And that's the problem with, people on the left will say it's a capitalism problem. I don't know so much if it's a capitalism problem, but just having things motivated by profit is not the most effective way to align incentives, because like you said, with the Super Bowl, people complain about the Super Bowl all the time, how the crowd sucks.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, terrible.
You're right. No sense. It should honestly, they should have 20% of the seats up for open auction, 40% of the seats sold exclusively to fans of one team, and 40% exclusively sold to fans of another, and those put up for auction. That would make the whole experience better for everyone involved. The only people that would actually be hurt by that are ticket scalpers. Like literally the only people who would have any loss of anything from that are ticket scalpers. And I guess technically people from other parts of the country wouldn't be as involved. But you know what? We publicly fund these stadiums.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous. And so we do have a personal stake of ownership in what goes on in them. And they should not only serve profit, they should serve the good of the people who are also paying for them. And you can take that to stadiums, you can take that to parks, you can take that to anything. We are desperately losing so many things in this country that we used to have, which were designed for public good, which were designed for happiness, which were designed to give people a place to go where they wouldn't have to be in the house or be spending money to feel comfortable being there. And we used to have so many more places like that. And they're just disappearing all over the place because it's we can use this area for profit generating activity, which isn't really the best possible thing. Imagine if you spent every hour of your life solely motivated by generating profit. You'd probably kill yourself. It would be terrible. It would not be a life worth living. There's more that humans need than that. It's the same argument for art majors. Yeah, you can make the argument that an art major isn't going to make as much money as a engineering major, and we might need engineers more than we need artists. But is that really true?
I don't think
artists have existed throughout all of human history, and we've never not had extreme demand for them. So, imagine your life without artists.
It's whenever people shit on art majors and stuff. Oh yeah, when has music ever made anyone's life better? As well as that's stupid. That's ridiculous. We do need these things, and whenever it's the point of college. People talk about, because we have unfortunately, because he said our life just revolves around making enough money to live, that we've kind of skewed what college is supposed to be for, and that college only exists as an avenue to get you an occupation to earn more higher income. That's the only way we think of, but it's about a lot more than that. It's called a liberal arts university, liberal arts college, and it's to like expand your knowledge of being a human being, like finding out more about your society and about yourself. And which is why the humanities are so important, because yeah, we could all sit around and study math all day. Great. I mean, fantastic. Like math is like the language of logic. It's great to learn things about, math and science and STEM, but it doesn't help you connect to people very well. It's not gonna. We need people who are actually, pushing forward human advancement in, psychology and, different way, and sociology and different ways that human beings connect. Because once again, what's the point of being alive if you don't have people doing that?
Yeah, and that's the thing that everyone always forgets about, and we wouldn't want that society. Like you actually pursued the type of society that these. I don't know how exactly to describe them. These brands of conservatives that are hyper, bottom line focused.
Performative sociopaths. That's what they are. Yeah.
Like if you were to actually structure society in that way, it would be miserable for 99% of the population. And so and I think that the average normie can understand that. Like, I think the average American can look at it and be like, there's definitely, we shouldn't have everything driven by profit. And so
conservatives believe that? It's because it's why they're so obsessed with religion, because that's the role that religion plays for them. So they know it's true, but they just rather it come from God than from us. They want it top down. They don't want it horizontal.
It's funny you say that, TJ, because it's something that I've been toying with as an idea that I want to pursue at some point in my life. If I ever have the ability to buy a little property and have a live up top, shop in the bottom sort of housing situation, I would love to set up just a church, for lack of a better term, but a secular church, because I feel like there is desire for that sort of thing. And I feel like as long as I, could break even on it, I would be totally happy running it and doing the labor to run it. Do you think that's feasibly possible? Not a secularized church that we could create, in the private sphere to kind of offer those public options. Or do you think that's it would never work?
I do talk about this a lot, and we're not the first people to think about
I know. That's why I'm if I feel like this is such an obvious concept. If it worked, it would have happened already.
Yeah, and it's so the problem that you run into with exactly what you're saying is that when religion has survived this long for a reason. It's because it works. Because it's an incredibly effective tool in bringing people together who have nothing else in common. You're living in a tribe 100,000 years ago, and you worship this, the tree god, and then you find this other tribe of people you don't know, you're not related to, you might think they're dangerous, but they worship the tree god as well. Now you guys are friends, and we're the descendants of those people, of these superstitious, primitive people, and we have their genes, and so religion has lasted a long time. Now, the problem comes up when you realize that religion is all made up, that it has its social utility, but it has a lot of drawbacks as well. And so we're like, okay, so we don't need this thing. We can figure out morality on our own. We do it all the time anyway, so let's get rid of religion. And then people like us come along. It's like, all right, but the problem is when you take away religion, that's been the core of our social bonding for such a long time, and we have nothing to replace it. Like, where are you gonna get married? Just at the courthouse? Who's gonna oversee your funeral? It's just stuff like that, stuff that you need to bring communities together. Mm-hmm. And this idea actually is pretty old. And I want to bring up an example. It's my turn to share the screen here. So back in the French Revolution, whenever the French Revolution happened, they decided to get rid of the church because the clergy were wildly corrupt. Have I talked about this on the show before? I don't know.
The French Revolution getting rid of the church. I don't think so.
Okay.
But, it tracks from what I know about France.
Yeah, so they got rid of the Catholic Church, the First Estate. And by the way, if you guys ever hear the media referred to as the Fourth Estate, that's a term that kind of references the French Revolution, because in the French Revolution, back in those days, you had the First Estate, which was the church, the Second Estate, which was the aristocracy, and the Third Estate, which is everybody else. And so the media refers to themselves as the Fourth Estate. But Robespierre, they got rid of the 7-day week because that comes from the Bible. They got rid of that's where the meter came from. I'm pretty sure as a unit of measurement. They had weeks that were 10 days long, and then you had the metric system based on units of 10. But he also realized that, hey, we need some kind of social thing to bring together. So let me see if I can share this here. He created something. Okay, here we go. Oh shit. The cult of the supreme being. Is what he created, and I love that he called it a cult, but it's like that's but first mistake right there is referring to it as a cult, but it's a form of theocratic deism established as the intended state religion of France and a replacement for Roman Catholicism and its rival, the cult of reason by Robespierre during the French Revolution. It went unsupported after the fall of Robespierre, along with the cult of reason was officially banned by the first consul Napoleon Bonaparte. So they tried this. They tried this exact same thing because they realized that, we need to bring people together, and people just laughed it out of the room. They said, this is ridiculous. Like, he had this weird ass statue that he had everybody, huddle around. So I don't know what we can do to actually replace religion. It's going to be really difficult, and no one's come up with a great answer yet, but it is something that we need because they need something to rally around. And not everyone's just happy with, secularism like we are. But I wish I had an answer. But good news, though, starting a church is pretty easy, I guess. I mean, and it's tax-free. Like, it's just a scam. So go for it. Why not?
Well, that's the thing, TJ. Like, it didn't work when he did it, but he was going against some really strong competition. The church is not as strong as it was.
No.
It is declining. Actually, for the first time in American history, like the church attendance among adults is significantly declining. I saw, like, it's been something that's been remarkably steady up until honestly like the 2000s is when it really started actually declining. So like, I think that there is all those people who aren't going to church are probably looking for something like church, or at least their kids are going to be definitely looking for something like it by the time church attendance hits, 10%.
Who did we have on? Was it Cannon's Fodder who said that she thinks we're going to see a rapid rise in cults because of this? I think it
sounds like Cannon's Fodder.
Yeah, because people are looking for something, and they're going to look for something. And I mean, you can kind of say like Trump is kind of a cult, but Obama was kind of a light cult too in a lot of ways. It wasn't bad as Trump, but you can see people kind of flocking toward, powerful leaders to represent them and to feel something in their souls, because it is tricky without it. Not everyone is up to it, apparently, especially not our culture where it's just, so ingrained into us.
So I think we've branched into two different things because there is the leadership aspect of the church, which you just kind of referred to, where you can have a cult of personality around Donald Trump or Barack Obama or whatever, and that acts in many ways like a religion, or at least a organized religion. But the other thing that we're referring to is that third place, that free public gathering space. You have, it doesn't necessarily have to be spiritual, but it feeds the spirit. I don't know how else to say that thing where you get social connection, you get intellectual conversation of some sort, you get community building. And right now there just isn't. Like, honestly, like, if I didn't have sports, I feel like sports is that.
Sports is good
for me. But like, for people who don't have sports, I don't know what the hell y'all do. Like I genuinely don't know how you connect with your fellow man, because like there's not much else like that just brings people together into a community to give them a common talking point to branch off of and form connections. Like, that just doesn't exist, and it has to exist because there's such demand for it. But like, as long as we try to privatize that demand and generate profit from it, it's never going to be satisfied, because you having to pay for it defeats the fucking point. Like, it's never going to catch on, especially among the lower classes.
Yeah. By the way, there's 6 of you watching right now. Comment what brings you together as human beings.
No, if you guys don't like I need to know. I genuinely
so And sports has got, and you referenced it towards the end that if we keep this gateway against like making sports harder and harder to watch for the common person, it's gonna. I mean, you read, and I know money was worth more back in the day, but it's still like you'll read about the 27 Yankees, and you could go watch them for 15 cents or something. Like damn, it's like, and it was just open to a lot more people. Where's it going with this? Oh yeah, and so. Sports does still kind of work though, because you don't necessarily need to watch it to be a fan of the team, and you can just like check the highlights the next morning and you can still feel that connection. Although I used to watch sports all the time. I grew up like memorizing.
Yeah, I remember you said you kind of fell off recently.
Yeah, and it was only because I stopped paying for cable. I got rid of cable years ago, and since then I just don't watch sports anymore. And my friends and my brother and my dad, they still do. And every once I'll get a text that's like, "Oh yeah, how about so and so for the Celtics?" I'm like, I don't even know that guy's name. Like I don't know what's going on. I have no clue. So I've kind of let go of sports, but I still enjoy it. Like I'll still check out like Shannon Sharp clips or something like that. And I don't know. And I still watch all these YouTube videos about sports, but I can only think I can't tell you about any player who played after 2015. I just don't know, what's going on. So, but for people like us though, we have found this community, with like politics and stuff, which is like people call it a religion and stuff. And in a way it kind of is, because we're trying to, make life better for people. And this is the venue we've chosen. And instead of worshiping a deity, we're kind of, putting our faith in humanity. So it's like humanism. It's not a religion, but it's close enough, I guess. Don't tell the Christians that. They love calling it a religion when it's not.
Yeah, and it's the religious aspect. So like the religion and politics are hand in hand. But I do think that like the thing that you get from like political connection is very different than thing you get from religious connection. Like at least in political circles I've been in, it's very much focused on the politics. Like I don't like sit around. Like I remember going to mass as a kid, and you went to mass, and the father had his sermon and everything, and then everyone went to they hung out afterwards and talked and like had a social connection and everything. We're like, I don't know. I don't feel like that exists in political circles I've been around. Whether it's doing this, we're talking politics. Whether it's organizing in like my local communities and everything, we're talking about the organizing. Like it's very much less that you're getting that just pure social human interaction connection third place to just exist. At least in my experience. Maybe you had a different experience.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, whenever I'm part of like an organizing event, I do feel very similar to how it was in churches, because there's a lot of planning and sitting around. Like, yeah, there's a lot of strategizing stuff, but it's a great way to meet people and to make friends in your community that you otherwise wouldn't. So I don't know, like maybe my experience, it has been at least similar enough that I can see that. But not everybody is just into politics. That's not going to work for everyone. That's the unfortunate thing.
That's the thing the Catholic Church nailed, is that you just make the mass so boring that it's palatable to everyone. Like, it won't turn anyone off. You expect boring. That's what you're gonna get, and you'll never be disappointed.
Yeah, the Protestants went the hellfire and brimstone route, and look, it was successful, but only for a few hundred years. Like that, you can only, and even like since I was a kid, like listening to Protestants and evangelicals now, they are soft as baby shit compared to what I saw growing up in the 90s and everything. Like every other sermon was about hell and how you were going to burn for it. They never talk about hell anymore. They just don't do it. Because it scares people away. It's incredibly off-putting. And they just see the numbers. Like you mentioned, like the numbers of the religiosity. I saw something just this morning, and I wish I could remember the numbers, but it was something like 28% of Americans say they have no religious affiliation whatsoever. It's kind of like doubled in the past 5 or 6 years or something like that. And it's only going to keep growing, which is back to Republicans I remember the Republicans. I forgot to mention this, that my prediction for the Republicans, in fact, it's not a prediction as much as it is the only possible consequence of what's going to happen, is that we're going to see a political realignment. Like that's going to happen. Like it has to happen. Like the last one we had was really in the 1960s with the civil rights movement. And where, beforehand you had black people started voting for the Democrats during the New Deal era. And it was kind of slowly, because they were all Republicans before that, and slowly going more and more towards Democrats until the nail in the coffin was the Civil Rights Act that Johnson supported. But the Republican Party cannot stay the the Southern Strategy Party. That is untenable. They will die, and they're not going to die, so they're going to adapt. They're going to first try the Nikki Haley route, but that's still way too close to what the party was, because once all the older white boomers die off, that's not even going to work. And it's going to have to do something. It'll stick with a lot of social conservatism, because we talked about before that the Republicans could get a lot of minority votes if they just dropped the racism. Like they would get a ton of minority votes if they just dropped the racism. But it's so much of a core part of their constituency that they can't let go of it. They're going to have to. Now, they can still be bigoted in a whole lot of other ways and still pick up a lot of, conservative minorities. And I think that's the route they're going to go. I don't know what else they can do to be, because Texas will eventually turn blue. It'll probably take 10 years, but it will, just by demographics. And so they're going to have to get those votes if the party wants to survive.
It is interesting to speculate about what they would coalesce around, because I actually disagree that, like, if they just dropped the racism, they could get so many minorities, because the racism is so intertwined with so many of the other social, like the culture war shit. Like, I don't think that you're going to get enough people out of bed hating on trans people. Like, I don't think you're going to get enough people out of bed with any of the, like, you have to honestly lean into the more fiscal aspects of conservatism, I think, to get people on board if you're going to just drop the racism entirely. But, like, that's not the culture war shit people crave. And the culture war shit people crave, I don't know if it appeals to minorities if you just dropped the racism part of it. You know what I mean? Because, like, the ideological underpinning of it all is very anti-minority of any kind. And there's plenty of minorities that won't, like, they just won't see the need for solidarity, but, like, a lot of them will. And as long as you are, attacking some minority group, you're never going to get the majority of the minorities.
It depends which minority it is, because, like, it worked for Muslims for years. And you don't need to get all, like you said, you don't need to get all the minorities. You just need to get a big enough chunk to keep your party alive. Because like now, so, like, for example, men vote red more than women do, and that applies across every racial group. Black men vote Republican more than black women. Now, it's only like 12% of black men, but they do more. And so there are things that you could, like, pick up. And once again, it could be a brand new issue that is not even on the table now. Like, trans issue wasn't on the table 5 years ago, but now it is. I mean, it could be just defending church and religion itself, or it could be being against feminism. Like, it could be a lot of things that they can still stick with. And not necessarily, I'm not saying they're going to get half the black vote or anything, but if you can get it up to 25%, that's going to be a huge chunk to help out, just to keep the party on life support a little bit longer. And then it could be an issue that, we aren't even thinking about, but they're going to have to do something. Like, it's going to have to change one way or the other.
And I think, like, you hit it with the religion thing, but also what we just talked about in this show is that church attendance is declining.
Yeah, it's true.
And if you just think about this logically, like, defending church, that'll probably work for a couple generations.
Few years.
I can't imagine that my grandchildren are going to be in a world where religion is, like, or my grandchildren, but my great-grandchildren, I would wager that by the time my great-grandchildren are, like, just my age, that it'll be like, oh, you're religious? That's a weird thing to do.
I don't think it'll take that long.
Really, I don't know. It's been a thing that's been around for much of human history. I'm not going to bet against it. It's like betting against Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to bet against it. No matter how bad the surrounding cast is, I will believe it when I see it, But it happened eventually.
Well, yeah, I don't think... like, for example, like with your grandchildren or something, I don't think they'll live in a world where religion doesn't exist, but it'll probably be like Western Europe or Japan is with religion. Like, yeah, it's around, but no one gives a shit. Like, no one cares. Like, the churches are barren, they're empty. They still have, like, a cultural significance and everything, but no one takes it all that seriously. I was listening to a video just the other day about an evangelical guy who moved to, England, and he started going to churches in England, and his mind was blown at how unserious. It's not that they didn't take it seriously, but they approached it from a completely different angle than American Christians did, where they didn't, have, like, this bubbling hatred and this zeal for it. It's like, it was like a philosophical educational exercise. Like, oh yeah, this stuff was written all these years ago. People believed it, and this is how it, contributed to, our ancestors' lives. And it was just mind blowing to him. I think that's the world that, the next generation is going to be living in when it comes to religion in the United States, at least.
It's actually coincidentally, I stepped in the shit of religious threads this week, specifically Christian threads. I asked the simple question of, if you're a Christian, how do you reconcile the idea that an all-powerful, all-loving God you worship created hell to torture people for all eternity? And obviously, I'm not the first person to ask this question. I'm not, trying to pawn that off as my own. But I got so many responses from a teacher. I have there's like almost 1,400.
Any good ones?
Thread. So in terms of define good, TJ, in terms of good argument, a lot of them were like, oh, well, God isn't condemning people to hell for all eternity. I'm like, well, that's a valid, that's a valid interpretation of the Bible if you want to have it. I don't read that interpretation in there. I thought it was pretty clear what hell was, but if that's what you want to believe, that's fine. This question doesn't apply to you. that was like the most common good answer. There was a lot of people who just were not getting the idea that God is all powerful. They just don't understand what all powerful means, because they're like, oh, well, there's only two places. They can go to heaven or hell. And the common answer was, well, if you choose to live without God, then you're just in a place without God, and that sucks because God is all things good. God is all things bad too, but let's ignore that. And it's like, yeah, but he could just make that place not suck. Like, he's all powerful. He could create a multitude of places, and he doesn't have to make it eternal. There's so many things wrong with the concept of hell that it's so fundamentally how can you believe this?
The way they try to get around it is exactly the way that you said. The first answer they love to give is that, well, God doesn't send you to hell, you send you to hell. No, I'm not choosing that. I don't want to go to hell. That doesn't matter. God's going to send me anyway. And also, they'll do what you said. Is like, well, it's not a place of torture, that's based on Dante's Inferno and stuff like that. Okay, well,
it's also based in the Bible. It says it in the Bible.
Yeah, right. Yeah, come on. Yeah, first, Jesus is pretty clear about the book of the weeping and wailing, gnashing of teeth, the lake of fire. It all didn't come from Dante. But also, let's say it's true that it's annihilation, or it's just a place in separation from God, and that's going to be sad. Okay, why are you being punished for this? Why are you being punished for not believing in something that didn't give you significant evidence for? You don't choose to believe in something. You're either convinced or you're not, and you're getting punished for it. It doesn't make any sense to me. But also, when you said they don't understand the concept of God being all powerful, I don't know, because the concept of omnipotence doesn't make any sense. You can easily prove that an omnipotent being can't exist with third grade questions, can God create a rock so big he can't lift it? It's paradox after paradox whenever you have all power. And if you're going to say that God is all powerful and he's all knowing, all of this is his fault, like you alluded to. You can't blame anyone, because God created this universe knowing that man would sin, and he would have to punish him for it, and even set up the conditions for it, but with a Garden of Eden, because the tree of life is in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve eat from the tree of life, and they fall into sin. Now, why did God put the tree in the garden to begin with? Why? What?
I mean, kind of a dick move, right, TJ?
Right? Yeah. Why is it there? Because here's the thing. All right, let's assume that there's some he didn't have to do that, but let's assume he did, that there's some sort of divine rule book, and he's like, okay, I got to have the tree. Why did he have to put it in the garden? Why didn't he just put it on the moon? Just put the tree on the moon. That way, and
why does the tree have to exist, TJ?
Yeah, well, I'm saying, let's say that there's a rule book he has to follow to the tree. Just put
then he's not all powerful, TJ.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't. But you just twist yourself into knots, with this stuff, and I get why they have to do it, because they have to defend the religion, but it doesn't make sense when you question it.
If they honestly, I couldn't remake Christianity in a way that I don't think Christianity is an inherently bad religion. A lot of the shit around it is really bad, but the core teachings of Christianity are pretty successful. I think Jesus is a pretty cool guy. I think he was right about a lot of things, and if we all just acted like Jesus, this would be a better world. Totally admit that. But the hell thing is always you can always go back to hell, because even what you just said there with omnipotence, I agree with what you're saying, but I would at least have the benefit of the doubt to we don't have access to all the information. There could be 12 dimensions and we're only able to
Mhm.
experience 3 of them. And so obviously we wouldn't be able to understand the 7th dimension that would make this possible, just in the same way a 2-dimensional being wouldn't be able to actually comprehend the 3rd dimension.
Right.
Like I can that's like when it's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
in mysterious ways, I buy that. Hell is what fucks them. Because if once you tie the mysterious ways back to we need to act on this information or else we're eternally damned, that doesn't make any. Why would a god not give us the information we need to avoid eternal torture? What all-loving God would do that? It doesn't make sense. You can have one of these things. You can have the all-powerful, you can have the omnipotent, you can have the all-loving. You can't have all 3 of them and have hell exist. It cannot happen.
Or just human evil, honestly, or just like pain and suffering in the world that's like a tsunami killing hundreds of thousands of people, dying horrible deaths for they didn't do anything wrong. That's on God too. But it's funny you talk about that, because I do like to ask, well, okay, well, where is hell exactly? Well, where is it? How do you get there? Like, how does that happen? Like, explain the process of how your soul, by the way, prove that's real too.
You've never been to CPAC, DJ?
Say what?
You've never been to CPAC?
That's true. It would be like that. It's one of the circles of hell. But the extra dimension stuff is pretty, because it's true. Like if you guys look into string theory, they actually do propose there's either 11 or 12 dimensions that we know that, the spatial dimensions we have, and then time is like the 4th dimension. But like, if you had a 4th dimensional being try to contact us, we couldn't possibly understand. Like, I'm more than willing to grant that stuff, but those are just like assertions. You can't prove it one way or the other. And basing your whole belief system around this, I don't see the point. Just oh no, my cat unplugged my camera.
Darn, Wolfie.
Give me 1 second, John. Hold on.
Yeah, you're good. I'll keep talking while you plug the camera back in. One of the things that I always hear when I talk about religion is, well, why can't you just live and let live? Why these people, if people want to live a life of faith, that's on them. What's your problem with it? And it's like, I don't have a problem necessarily with living a life of faith as long as it's an examined life of faith. Like if you examine this shit and you're like, at the end of the day, I choose to have faith because it gives me comfort and it's best for me to shape my life around. I acknowledge that it's irrational. I'm okay with that. I have actually no problem with that. What the problem I have is when people don't examine it and yet base their entire life on it. And they go, oh, well, this is just the truth. And you have to accept that this is the truth and this is my truth. And I'm not really going to think about it, but I'm going to live as if I have. And that I actually think is a very dangerous mindset that we just totally normalize because of religion. And it really could, like what I said about not understanding how like an all-powerful being can fundamentally change the systems that you think must be. It's the exact same fucking argument I have with goddamn liberals all the fucking time. Like it's just like, oh, well, have you considered that we could just change the voting system, or we don't have to live in a capitalist society, or like we don't have to do things the way we have been. We make the rules. What they're like, oh, well, you just of course people who are born here get to be Americans, and people who aren't born here, they have to wait in line. It's like, why? That doesn't explain to me fundamentally why. Build it from the ground up. And it always goes to, oh, well, that's just the way it is. Because I don't understand. I've never actually questioned whether the systems around me need to be the way they are, because it's just so common in our culture to just not do that, because forever a fundamental basis of our culture has been religion, where you're not supposed to question these things. And that is my little diatribe on why I argue about religion, because I think it's a lot more fundamental to a lot of the problems we have than it seemingly is.
Yeah, they it's kind of like the joke about econ guys where they're like, whoa, you see this little graph here? This is why the poor should starve. Like, that's pretty much what it comes down to. Like, yeah, this is the rule. This is how it works. And religion. So it does annoy me when people have unjustified religious beliefs. It annoys me, but it doesn't make me angry. It's like, all right, fine. I have plenty of contradictory, unjustified beliefs too. Like, we're human beings. It's not. But something that major really bothers me, because then it leads you toward conspiratorial thinking in just, believing in giant things with no evidence at all. That's why you never see, like, whenever you see a flat earther or something, they're almost always religious. Like, it's always based on complete nonsense. I do have to disagree with you on one thing about Jesus, because I'm not such a big fan of
really. That's because I'm a big fan of Jesus.
No, so mostly I'm cool with Jesus. Like, mostly I'm cool, though. I just think his rep is a little higher than it should be, because first off, the concept of hell, that doesn't show up until Jesus shows up. Like, if the Old Testament has no concept of hell.
That's fair.
Yeah, Jesus was the one, those gentle Jesus, meek and mild, who brought about this whole eternal damnation thing. So, that's a strike against him. And he was also a racist. Yes, Jesus was a racist. And I use do you remember the story?
I haven't heard this. No.
Do you remember the story when I think it's a Phoenician woman comes up to Jesus and she asks him for help, and she says, "Hey, my daughter is possessed by a demon. Could you come, help my daughter?" And Jesus says, "Listen, bitch." He said,
it's a direct quote from the Bible.
Well, it pretty much is. I said that for a reason, because what Jesus tells her is, it is not fit for the father to give his children's food to the dogs. That's what he tells her when she asks him for help. And she says, "Well, that's true. However, the dogs do eat the crumbs that fall from the children's table." And Jesus thought that was pretty clever. He goes, "That's pretty good." So he helped her. He says, "You know what?" He literally says, "Because of your answer, your daughter is healed now." Like, he was literally impressed with how clever her answer was. So I point to that. I was like, yeah, Jesus, he was a racist. Just want to make that very clear, that his rep is a little higher than it should be. But for the most part, the stuff he said was good. And as far as ancient role models go, you could pick a worse ones than Jesus.
I'll give you that. I gotta read more into this. It was a Canaanite, not a Phoenician.
Okay, okay, all right.
But okay, Jesus was a racist. Okay.
Hey, no one's perfect, right?
I feel like there was just one really racist, like, ancient Jew who was just like, we got to stick it to the Canaanite dogs. We got to keep this one in here, guys.
There's a lot of it in there. Like, the story of the Good Samaritan is oddly an anti-racist story. It's also a story Jesus told, because the Samaritans were looked down upon by the Hebrews, as half-breeds and stuff. So I guess he was cool with the Samaritans. The rest of the whatever. But anyway, we ran over the show. We gotta. What are we gonna do?
So let's discuss what we're talking about tomorrow, TJ.
So do you have? I wrote down 4 topics. Because I just. Do you have any at hand? I don't know which ones.
I had two that I wanted to talk about.
All right.
But my first I wanted to talk about was Biden went on Univision and did an interview where he said he plans to use executive order to limit asylum seekers and stop them from crossing the border.
Damn, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, or he's considering doing that, which I was the quotes from this, like, very short article are just like, oh shit, these are all the things he's been saying he couldn't do to forgive student loans or have universal health care or anything. But so I think there's just a lot of jumping off points for that. And then the other one I had was the meltdown with Mike Johnson, and we talked about it briefly.
I like that one. I love that.
That can just be a recurring segment every week,
right? It's always something great. So Arizona abortion, I feel like we got to talk about that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
And I had also Trump and abortion, but I feel like that can be the same topic. Trump and abortion. Yeah. And then I had so these are 2 like fun ones. Did you see the clip with Robert F. Kennedy's campaign manager saying how their goal is to help Trump and defeat Biden? Did you see that?
I have not seen that.
Yeah, there's a video. So she's talking to this room full of Kennedy supporters, and she says, "All right, so everyone here's a Trump fan, right?" And they all start clapping and everything. It's like, yeah, so our goal, like our North Star, is to take votes away from us. She like says it out loud, and so I think that'd be a pretty good clip. Kennedy anti-Biden, and then I saw that Trump's properties were seized. I don't know if we want to talk about that one, but like he lost his what was it? His wasn't a bail bond, his bond or whatever. And so they're going to start seizing it. It came out like 30 minutes before we started the show.
Oh,
okay. And so yeah, that'd be a pretty good one because that's just funny. I just let myself.
that one's funny. I just don't know how much more I have to say about it. Other than,
yeah.
You know, so if it were up to me, I would do the abortion thing as one topic that could probably easily split into two. And
Kennedy.
The Kennedy one, yeah, that sounds.
That's just a wild clip. Like it's so wild that they come right out and said it. I just I thought they'd be pretty good. So all right, who do we have tomorrow as a guest?
We have what was his name? It's Liz's boyfriend.
Okay, I never met him.
He has an actual name.
He has a name,
and is an influencer of his own right. He has a similar following to me. Oh, that's why
funny. Liz's boyfriend. He has a name.
Hold on. It's like RH or RJ or something, but I feel like he has a more common screen name that I wasn't looking at when I was talking to him. Hold on. Stupid Meta logging me off, not letting me get back on.
Well,
you know what? You guys will find out tomorrow. I think
it'll be a mystery. It'll be good.
I'm sorry. It's not R. Oh wait, okay. It is RH, but the username is iDef Overthink.
I like it. I like him already.
Yeah. He's a teacher.
Cool. Good stuff. All right, cool.
But yeah, so he's going to be our guest. We'll be discussing those topics. If you're still watching this, thank you very much. Make sure to be here tomorrow at 6:00. We'll be live once again. Thank you all for being here and have a good day.
Later, folks.